All right, I guess there's no good way to start this. I'm Jay. I had an idea. I always start my videos with I had an idea. Um, I am not sure if everybody knows or has a rough idea of how to start or exactly what you're even looking for. That's the other thing. Like when you're starting to build a draft. By the way, we're about to start our season coming up, and sometimes, like people, like I take people in like a voice chat and we kind of go over just like the concept of team building, what you're looking for, how to do it, and where to start, things like that. I am here to kind of show you guys you can kind of do whatever you want. Like if you want to build around a mon, build around the mon you want, right? Like part of draft league is to obviously win, have fun, things like that. Having fun is is a result of winning sometimes, but in the end you want to have, like, I think I forget who I was telling this week or last week. It's like it's tough when you draft a team that you want just because it'll do well or you think it'll do well, so you draft these like VGC modes, things like that, like Tailwind and blah blah blah, and like all these like Chi-Yu Flutter Mane or whatever it is. It's fun to win, right? But are you gonna have fun with those teams if you're, say, 0-4? Unlikely, because you have Chi-Yu Flutter Mane in that example. But if you draft something that is just good, like Psy Spam or whatever it is, it's good. If for some reason the season's not going your way, you want to actually have a team that you enjoy using, something that's fun. So maybe some people like to meme, things like that. Some people like to just troll. But you still want a team that can be competitive, meme, troll, and yeah, and have a good time with. So hopefully this video kind of gives people an idea of how to start. I hope I'm not giving away people's ideas and stuff like that for next season. I tried to pick things that we usually don't build around. Like there's some notoriously picked things most seasons, so I kind of tried avoiding those, and I kind of went with things that aren't all the time picked. So if you get sniped because of this, I don't care. I would care. No, but in the end, I don't know what anybody's picking. I haven't really talked to anybody about their plans or anything, but I just kind of wanted to help people out if they were looking for it, and some people just don't want to ask. So yeah, so here we go, I guess. So I'm going to go through a few, I think, let me see, 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to do one on the fly. Ooh, a little treat, so stick around till the end, just to get you guys to watch the whole thing, or just skip. Can't stop you from doing that. But anyway, so I'm just going to start with this one. I was debating on just building on the fly for all of them, but then I'm like stupid, so whatever. No, but these weren't too bad. I need to give myself some more credit. So I wanted to start with this one with Landorus Incarnate. It's not something that's picked all the time in the WPL, but it is very, very, very good. So in my opinion, I believe that when you start with your first round pick, whether or not it's restricted, by the way, I did avoid doing restricteds because there aren't many of them, and that's a big snipe. So I really don't want to influence any of that. There's a lot of dragons. That's all I know. So my opinion, save your dragon for your restricted. In my opinion, there are a lot of them. So if you're going for a core, fairy, dragon, steel, whatever, go for a dragon in the restricted tier. There's so many of them. But however your draft goes. Anyway, moving on. I started with Lando because, again, it's not very used, and it also just hits like an absolute truck. Landorus Incarnate gets Sheer Force, which basically gives you a free life orb to anything that has a secondary effect, and Lando has enough of them. Landorus, there it is. So if you look at Lando's moves, usually it's run on the special side. Earth Power, secondary effect. What's it called? Psychic, secondary effect. Sand Seer, secondary effect. Scorching Sand, Sludge Bomb, and you guys get the idea. And all of those things hit very, very hard. So this thing just straight up OHKOs things. So it's always good to build around something that will do damage naturally, in my opinion. Yes, there are broken strategies that can set up, like Gudra Hisui and things like that. And just like Nasty Plots, Dragon Dances, whatever it is. Those are all very strong. But if you need to play hyper offense, you need to be able to do so in a certain week. Sometimes you have to just go Rock'em Sock'em Robots, just go at somebody and just do as much damage as possible early. And then there's sometimes where you can set up. Your players, I've had a couple weeks where, people wanted to set up and stuff like that, and you go at them hard, and sometimes you just play balance and grind out your opponent, and you can get a win. So you want to have all of those different play styles on your team, so in a given week you can call upon them. So But I do like to build around hyper offense, and then you can kind of build supporting pieces around in the other tiers. But separating supporting pieces, things that hit differently, whether or not it's a type, hitting certain types super effectively, type combinations super effectively, and also switch-ins, because pivoting is a major part. Protect is great for one turn, but what do you do after that? If you're in a bad matchup, you die. So having good switch-ins is really helpful. So these are 3 mods that I think work really, really well together, and I'll explain why. And a lot of people are just looking at that type chart. They're going, whoa, wow, look at that. That just kind of, it just happened. I didn't think it would be perfect, but it turns out it is. But this is a good example of how to start. So notice that I did not build a whole team here, and you see all green because a lot of those are inflated. Like it lights up green and you go, wow, but a lot, like you have a steel type in your tier 4. And if you took that one thing off, then it just lights up red like Christmas. So it's definitely sometimes inflated. So I like to build around a core, a high tier core, things that will do damage naturally. And then they support each other, switch in, play style, offense, defense, special attack, physical attack, things like that, and speed tiers. Because you don't want to have all fast, all slow, whatever it might be, because then you're susceptible to one room or the other, trick room or not. So I'll explain why these I feel go really well together. So Lando suffers to ice attacks. Obviously, icy winds are a big problem with things that are quad super effective, and its special defense isn't exactly super high. So like 80, 89, 90, 80 is really good bulky, and its typing, it only has 2 weaknesses, but those weaknesses are amplified when it's a quad. So what do we do? So what resists ice and water? Oh, a water type. Cool. But it's not just any water type you want to grab, though. Like, you basically, that's the first box you check off. Okay, it switches in. Does it hit differently than Lando? Well, Lando hits on the special side most of the time and pretty quick. So Awseome, what it does is it hits on the physical side naturally. Is a little slower. So if they decide to set Trick Room or something, it has priority, things like that. Awseome just switches in very nicely to Lando. And the combination of offensive fairy and offensive ground is literally perfect. Ground hits everything except for, fairy hits everything except for poison and steel. What hits poison and steel? Ground types. So, and Lando does that very, very well. So if you have a team on a given week built around Awseome, like Belly Drum or just huge power stuff or coaching next to it or whatever you decide to make your Awseome go, Landorus does cover for those defensive terras. Like, you might not necessarily want to have these together regularly. Maybe after setting up you can. Like, say you set up a Tailwind or something like that, and then it dies. These two on the field are very, very nice because good luck pivoting, attacking, tearing. Like, good luck. It's not fun. How else do you beat Landorus and Awseome? Well, Awseome is susceptible to Intimidate. And as we mentioned, Landorus is also susceptible to Icy Winds. It's probably the most common Ice-type move used in the game. Because it's spread, it lowers speed, it gives a really good advantage if they're not ready for it. So Bisharp is what we'd like to call a deterrent. So Defiant is not the end-all be-all since Mirror Herb was brought into the game, but it makes them run an item. It makes them have Bisharp counters. Bisharp's a tier 3 for a reason. It's good, but it's not going to win you games on its own. But when you have a tier 3 that's as impactful as something that supports your top 2, well, obviously there's restricted, there's another tier 2, possibly another tier 1 on this team, depending on how it goes. But if they're looking at your tier 3 and have to prep against it, or consider things, then it just makes your top stuff even stronger. So that's why I think Bisharp's a really good mod to add to this team. You could potentially, if you went for a model with, a restricted that's say 40 points or 20 points or whatever it might be, you can fit that second tier 1 and this Bisharp becomes a King Gambit. Obviously it's slightly better. Slightly as in very. Same typing, but it just hits so much harder naturally. This thing can win you games on its own. But if you're looking for value, I do believe Bisharp does the job and does it very well. One of the cool things as well is Bisharp, if you are leaning on Bisharp on a given week, because say you're facing Psy Spam or something like that, and you want a Dark type to kind of go off, Bisharp is susceptible to fighting attacks, another quad weakness. So the other two, they resist your close combats pretty well, actually. Lando with 90 defense and Azumarill with a ton of HP and a decent defense pool. Yeah, it's really good. So same thing with fire. Obviously, there's a quad resist. If you run the thick fat on Azumarill, usually it's just a half resist when it comes to. But it's a great flamethrower or heat wave switching. Azumarill, it's great. Azumarill loves facing Chiyus. Things like that. And what else? Ground, you also have your, what's it called? You have your Landorus, so which you can switch in, and they just whiff. You don't always have to Terra. So these teams are basically built around you don't want to use your Terra. So there are some Terra-dependent Pokemon. If you build the right team around them and support them, you don't need to rely on your Terra. Terra can be a secondary thing to help you survive, and a pivot can just be a nice way to go about it. So, and I hope I'm not like explaining things to top end players. We have a lot of players that are better than I am, but this video is more so for people who are not sure, or they're just kind of getting writer's block or drafter's block. You build so many teams and they're all starting to look the same. This might just give you a little bit of a clear perspective. So can someone go in next draft and grab Lando first, Azumarill second, Bisharp third? Sure, I think it'd be good. But this video is really designed to give you concepts. Why we're picking certain things. I hope I explained it in a way that people can translate these to their other favorite mons. You know, Azumarill, Lando, Bisharp might not be what you want to play. You might want to go for something a little different. Pick your favorite and just have these concepts in the back of your mind when you're making your team, and hopefully to get them. I think grabbing lower tier stuff to support your top tier stuff is very nice, but again, they're also low tier for a reason. So I wouldn't go much lower than your tier 3 for building a top core, just because for the same reason, right? It's just you want these things to be brought most weeks. When it comes to your core, the actual foundation of your team, you want those to come most weeks. Like this season, I had Sandy Shocks, Ogerpon, Hearthflame, and Primarina. For the same reasons we mentioned here, they cover each other very well, and they also hit really differently on different sides of the speed spectrum. One has booster energy, free speed boost. One is naturally fast, and one of them is naturally slow. Two hit on the special side, one hits on the physical side, and things like that. So it's hard to prep for all of them. So same thing with these three here, and hopefully the next ones. But let me move on to the next one. And usually you can, by the way, look down here at your average stats, so you can kind of see what you have here. So do we have bulky mons? Okay, we have 89, 90, 80, 65, 170, but Eviolite definitely helps out the Bisharp. And then Azumarill, 100, 80, 80. So fairly bulky. And then we have on the offense 125, 125, 50, and this has huge power, so that 50 is much higher than that. And special attack, you have 115 with sheer force. So they hit on both sides of the spectrum, physical and special. They hit much different ways, and they defend with each other very well. So this is not your team. Obviously, you can't play with 3. You got to bring 6, bring 4. Bring 6, play 4. And so what else could this team use? It could use a Trick Room setter, because Azumarill is very, very good in Trick Room. You could use a bit of speed control, because Lando's 101 speed is fast, but it might not be fast enough most weeks. Because 101, there's a lot of things that are 110, 115, 120. Booster energies out there. So Lando might need some help. So Prankster Tailwind is obviously one of the go-tos people usually do. There's a lot of that going around. Just fast Tailwind, things that are just naturally quicker, like Latios. They're at 110, they're quicker. Or you just go bulky Tailwind. You go Corviknight or something like that. You know, just take a hit. Great, I get Tailwind up anyway. Or just some fast Icy Wind. Weavile would be a really good addition to this team. Maybe not, because there's a quad weakness to fighting already here. But you know what I mean. So anyway, moving on to the next one. I don't remember what the next one is. Okay, another fun one. So let's just say, again, no one's picked Iron Boulder yet. It's only had one season, so maybe that's why. But I can see somebody going for this or something, just because it's different. People might not be looking at it. We dropped it a tier, so it's not a tier 1, it's a tier 2. So let's actually drop this. You know what? I'll just leave it there. Let's just call it tier 1 right now, because there are models where you can have a tier 2 on. Screw it. I'll put it down here. Do things proper. There we go. Cool. Real professional. So anyway, 3 tier 2s. a core with 3 tier 2s. I think this is really nice. I wanted to build this. Fine, I'll put it first. How do I do this? Down here, and there, delete. Cool. None the wiser. Okay, so Iron Boulder. So Iron Boulder, first of all, when you start off with building around a certain Pokemon, you need to know what its strengths are. What does it do really well? Iron Boulder is very fast. 124 speed is blazingly fast. And not to mention you have access to booster energy, and you can max out your speed and max out your attack with Jolly, and you aren't leaving any EVs on the table. Like for example, Jugulus is a booster energy mon. If you want to go as fast as you can, it's going to be tough to manage out your special attack, things like that, because they're not exactly super close. And I don't know, I don't have it up, but anyway, there are certain Pokemon that you have to lower your special attack. Like Sandy Shocks was one of them for me. It's 121 special attack and 101 speed, I think. So if you want to go booster energy speed, you have to lower your special attack considerably, just to get that booster energy speed. So it's 1 point higher. So with Iron Boulder, I don't think that's going to be a problem, because if you go, let's just look here. So Iron Boulder, if you go max speed, and you max the attack, yeah, no issue. You're not leaving any attack points on the table. And if you still want booster energy speed, you can't. It's probably better if you just do this. 173, cool. You don't leave any attack on the table, and look at all the bulk you can put on there. Wow, this thing's good. Let's be proper here. Let's do this. Yeah, there we go. Octo will be proud. Anyway, so depending on what you need, you have the speed there in excess if you really, really want to. You can just go with different items because it's naturally fast. You don't necessarily have to go booster energy. You can do something like Choice Band. You know, obviously you don't need Choice Scarf, but you know what I mean. So again, what does Iron Boulder do really well? It hits fast, it hits hard, and it hits with Rock Stab. It is Psychic as well. Not a great offensive typing, but the move that it gets, oh my goodness, this thing is broken. Mighty Cleave. This is a very strong single target rock move. There are not a lot of single target rock moves that are any good. One of them is Ivy Cudgel on Ogre Pond Cornerstone. But that's pretty much it. There's Stone Edge. There's Rock Wrecker. What else is there? There's Head Smash. All of those hit very hard, but they're inaccurate. And a lot of people are afraid to run them. And then there's Rock Slide. Rock Slide doesn't hit super hard because it's spread, 75 power. So it works out to be a lot weaker. So Mighty Cleave is very unique in a sense. And the coolest thing about Mighty Cleave is you cannot protect in front of it. So it doesn't break it. So it's not like it's a feint where your partner can hit it after. But there's no protection from this thing. Like you can't, it's like an Urshifu with this move. And Rock is great offensive coverage. So I'm not selling Iron Boulder here. I'm selling how to build a team. So knowing what it does well first before you build around it is great. So how do people stop rock moves? Well, first of all, they use Intimidate because it's physical. So we have something that hits on the special side. So with Thundurus on the field, great. Now you can hit the water types that are going to hit Boulder. It doesn't get any flying stab, but you can go like Terra Flying, Terra Blast because it's already naturally flying to hit the grass types that are going to hit Boulder. Its coverage is really good. It's got good speed control. And, you know, if things want to bring out a physical wall, usually they're not a special wall as well. So that's another really cool thing as well. So I think Thundurus is a really good mon to have next to it. Not to mention, it doesn't cover perfectly, but look what it covers. It covers grass. Again, switch-ins, as we're talking about. It's not as bulky as the other one that we were doing before, but 79, 70, 80. It's not bad. It could use some love, but you can always invest in the defense as well. But look, so it covers grass, covers ground, because Boulder's weak to ground. It covers your bug. Believe it or not, Boulder's weak to bug. And it covers steel. So Thundurus is a really good way of dealing with things that deal with Boulder. And also another thing too is Iron Boulder has a 90 HP, 80 defense, 108 SPDF. So this thing is really high special defense. So how do we make Boulder even stronger? Because remember, we're building around our favorite mon. We're trying to build a core, something that can be brought most weeks. Well, a water type Great. So it covers your water switch-in. And dark switch-in as well, because it's psychic type. And what else? It also covers the psychic. Sorry, the other way around. It covers the psychic. But let's see. One there, so it covers the water. Doesn't cover the grass. Doesn't cover the ground. We already have something for that. It covers the bug, just in case you want a bug switch in. And it also covers the steel as well. And it covers the dark. Cool. So, but the reason I put it on the team is, yes, the defensive typing is nice, but the Intimidate to patch up Iron Boulder's weakest stat. So if things are going to hit this thing, it's probably going to be on the physical side. So Intimidate would patch that up really nicely. And not to mention Assault Vest Thunderous has a higher special defense because you have AV on there. And now the Intimidate just made the defense just that much better, because now the attack being lowered helps my defense that's already low. So doesn't directly make my defense higher, but you know what I mean. So these three as well. So again, the same concepts we were applying before. We are finding out what beats what we have, and we're trying to put supporting cast around it to enable them or defend. And I feel like these three do that really well. These are on the faster side, so you definitely want to build the rest of a draft with this team. Maybe something a little bit slower that can handle a Trick Room mode. There are Trick Room deterrents. You just draft something like an Amoonguss or a Fungus or something like that, that if you set Trick Room on them, well, you're going to have to deal with spores, because I'm probably going to be slower than you. So that's a way to do it too. Like, again, yeah, I think Amoonguss would be a great addition to this team. Beautiful. I'm liking it already. And it gives you a fairy switch in. Beautiful. It also gives you another electric, just an electric switch in. And you have 2 fire resists for the Amoonguss as well. So very cool stuff. But we'll take the Amoonguss off there because we only wanted to do trios. So, but you see what I mean. So you can draft another Trick Room set of yourself, so you can reset it. You can run an Imprison set. You can run Fake Out, things like that to stop Trick Room from happening. Actually, now that I think of it, Boulder, one of the things is, yeah, if you have a Fake Out user, they don't want to protect in front of a Boulder. So you could always Fake Out the partner, because I don't think they're going to protect in front of a Boulder, because they can just get hit anyway. It's probably a switch. So something like Guard Dog, like Omnimo Bostiff. So if they want to switch, take the hit, and then you just hit them with double power on that switch in as well. So again, you got to play out these turns. What is your opponent going to want to do? Same thing as the first one we did. We did something that you want to intimidate a Azumarill. Well, you want to intimidate our Iron Boulder if it's running booster energy. It's kind of a red flag, or just a flag in the beginning saying like, wow, I don't have Clear Amulet. Intimidate me as soon as the booster energy goes off. So having something that might have competitive, I think Milotic or something like that on this team could do really well. Maybe instead of the Tauros, you grab an Intimidate user somewhere else, or whatever you want to do. Again, the same concepts apply. But let's go on to the next one. So, ooh, yeah, here's a fun one. Baxcalibur. So Baxcalibur is not a regularly used Pokemon, but it hits so hard. So hard. This thing does not need any help when it comes to doing damage. It just gets better when you do. So, what do we do with this? So, why do I have these three on here? So, Baxcalibur hits really hard on the physical side. It's really bulky, like 115 HP, 92 defense, 86 special defense. And the speed's not bad either, 87. That is usable. It's not the fastest thing in the world. It's definitely not the slowest thing. But the fact that... And by the way, just to throw this out there, a good Trick Room Mon is not 30 base speed, or 40 base speed, or 50, or 60, or whatever it is. There's no number. A good Trick Room Mon in a matchup is slower than your opponent. You could have a Trick Room Mon that's 100 base speed, which is why Articuno is not a bad Trick Room setter. It's 95 base speed, but if you're facing a really, look at the last team we were just at. If you're facing an Iron Bolt or Thunderous, Trick Room looks great with Articuno, and Articuno will do well. So, but just not to get sidetracked and just kind of stick to what we were doing. So Baxcalibur is susceptible to fighting moves. Like, this thing really wants to be close combated. Close combat hits really hard. For the most part, 120 power attack. Usually deletes a Baxcalibur depending on what it is. And if it's stab, so any fighting type using the fighting type move close combat will probably eliminate a Baxcalibur most times. So what do we need? Articuno Galar, quad resist. That's great. That's one way of doing it. Another, and the reason Articuno Galar I thought worked out really well as well is, yes, it switches in nicely for it, and vice versa. Not to mention it's the other way around. Yeah, in a sense, just on a couple of the main ones. But Articuno also has competitive, so you want to intimidate Baxcalibur sometimes, because if you're running a loaded dice set, it's susceptible to intimidate. Well, Articuno gets a +2 special attack boost if you intimidate it. Duh. But again, just the same concept. Some people, Articuno is not the most commonly used Pokemon in our league. People aren't really looking at it, but it does offer a niche support role. And let's not forget it has 125 special attack as well. This thing hits pretty hard. And it's bulky. 90, 85, 100 is pretty bulky. If you give this thing a +2, now it's bulky, has support, and it hits really hard with its already naturally hard-hitting special attack. So I thought that was a really cool addition. And the reason I added Swampert as well. So one of the things I noticed about this team, and if you completely ignore the type chart, I think that's a mistake. But this early in, if you have two weaknesses of the same and you really want them to work, you need to have a good switch in for it. So Swampert switches into either of these when it comes to rock slides, things like that, or this one, Mighty Cleave. Swampert covers that really well. Because not to mention, it comes in and it does really good damage with the ground moves against the rock type moves, or the rock type mons. And Wide Guard is a really good thing as well. I'm not a huge fan of Wide Guard. I don't think, because if they guess wrong or they read it, you're just a sitting duck with a Wide Guard. But if there's a team that's very rock slide dependent, like say you're facing like, I don't know, a Lycanroc, usually it wants the rock slide, things like that. There are some notorious rock slide users. Swampert does really well, and that's just for the rock slides. Not to mention, we've got Expanding Force this season. That's going to go really well. Someone's going to get it. You got Blizzards. You've got Discharge, things like that. Not like Swampert needs... Anyway, protects partner. So I feel like Swampert does really, really well because rock slides is a thing, and the fact that two mons, again, bringing most weeks, you're probably going to bring it most weeks if you're building your team around it, you better have something that can handle its weaknesses. And I think Swampert does that really well, and it's reciprocated in a sense that it's quad weak to grass, and the other two mons that we started with also resist the grass. Same thing with the Intimidate. You want to stop Swampert. Snarls, if it's a special one. Articuno switches in very nicely for that. So these are three mons that I think are very, very good together. Again, just to applying the concepts we already did with the other ones. I'm just going to get a drink really quick. All right. I don't remember what... oh, yeah, I do. Okay. So I'm going to build this one on the fly. I don't have any notes. I think I built with this before, so it might be a little bit cheating, just full disclosure. But Magnezone, why do we want to build with Magnezone? Magnezone is very strong naturally. It has very good defenses and a very good typing. You just have to watch out for a couple of its weaknesses. But look at these quad resists. You got 1, 2, you have an immunity here, and you have just half resists against a lot of different things. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 resistances. There's only 18 types, guys. So Magnezone is a very good mon to start with. It kind of has an interesting place in the game because it's not too fast, not too slow. You probably get more off of using this thing in Trick Room. But with Analytic, if you go second, it gives you a free Life Orb. So if you can tank this thing out and go second and your partner can support it really well, like Follow Me, things like that, which we might actually go with Follow Me. Again, I don't know how I'm going to build around this, but just kind of doing it on the fly. Yeah, this thing can do really, really well. 130 special attack is no joke. Not to mention the Analytic boost giving us a free Life Orb, and we put a Life Orb on it. That's double Life Orb. That's 2 Life Orbs if you go second. And you don't have to just run it offensively. You can always run it supportive as well. You can run an Assault Vest, blah, blah, blah. And one of the worst things about Magnezone in the past has always been its quad weakness. So if you're running up against like a Swampert from the last team, Magnezone needs to avoid that like the plague. So Terra is a hell of a thing. But again, like we mentioned earlier, we don't want to rely on our Terra. So we want to build a team around it that makes us not rely on our Terra, but we have it if we need it. So Terra Water is a great Terra type on Magnezone. Terra Flying, same thing. Yeah, and water is really good depending on what the matchup is. If you're facing a strong fire type, you might want to run water. If you're facing a strong ground type, you might want to run Terra Flying. Or I don't think grass is super great unless they have no fire types, but Terra is a thing with Terra Blast, so you have to be aware of that. So anyway, so let's build around this. We did mention that Follow Me is a really nice way of enabling this. Rage Powder is a thing. The fact that we're doing this in like a fantasy land where like there's everything's on the board and we're just kind of building, I would choose to not go with Rage Powder. If you have to, I think it's fine, but the fact that there's an item that just negates it and you don't even know if they have it until it's too late, I'd rather not. I think it's great if they don't. I think having a good Rage Powder mon like Sinistra, or actually Sinistra would be really good. I think we're going to go with Sinistra. Wait a second. It is a fire weakness. But it does have heat proof. Oh, that covers that really well. Yeah, we're going to go with this. Yeah, you're probably running Hospitality most of the time, but nobody's using Sinistra anyway, so I'm not pissing anybody off unless they want to go against the grain this season out of all seasons. But, so what does Sinistra give us? And again, I remind everybody that I'm just doing this on the fly. This is not planned or anything like that. I just thought of Sinistra. So let's actually go. Actually, we have other ways of dealing with that. Yeah. Again, me just thinking ahead. So what does Sinistra do? Sinistra allows us to redirect. It allows us to set Trick Room for our slow mon as well. We redirect the slow moves. I mean the ground moves. Redirect the fighting moves, and obviously Sinistra is a ghost type, so it would just whiff. So that's why I think Sinistra works really well. So close combat, drain punch, whatever it might be, Aura Sphere, whatever, into Magnezone. Now your Sinistra just redirects, and you're good. Also, not to mention the Hospitality. I think having Magnezone, and then you could just grind it out, and then you switch out and in, and you've got your healing. How much does it heal by? I forget. Sinistra. Quarter? Yeah, that's a lot. Quarter. Yeah. So, and not to mention, Sinistra works with other things on the team that potentially as well. You have, what, another 9 slots? So, I think Sinistra is a really good mon that's just not really used. Machigacha is really, really good too when it comes to healing. And this thing just sticks around. Again, Terra Water. So, actually, we can run with that too. So, there's a couple of points just as I was rambling. Magnezone, we mentioned Terra Water is a really good Terra type for it. Sinistra is also Terra Water, another really way of dealing with it. So, what do people run against Terra Water? Grass types. Cool. Grass types deal with Terra Water really well. Machigacha doesn't really hit grass types, and neither does electric. Yeah, you've got the steel stab. So why don't we grab a fire type? And people are probably just yelling, Incineroar, Incineroar, Incineroar. Don't run Incineroar. It's lame. Don't run Incineroar. Anyway. So yeah, let's just go find a fire type. Something on the faster side would be great, just so we can keep going with the... You know what? I'm going to reveal this. Okay, so I made a tool, everybody. And this allows me to filter based on... If anybody wants it, just let me know. You have to watch the video if you want it, and then just send me a message. I'll fire it over. This just allows me to kind of sort through parameters to find a mon that I might not be thinking of. Something that's not Incineroar. Cool, right? So we want to find a fire type. So let's sort by all the fire types in the game. Cool. There's a lot of them. And let's see. So what were we looking at? So on the fly. So we want a fire type that if it resists Ghost and Dark, that would be great. I know Incineroar meets that, but we're not picking Incineroar. We're not. And we want something on the faster side. So is there something that resists Ghost and Dark? Something that resists Ghosts. So we're just going to go anything that resists or immune. And Dark. So we have 4 options. Chiyu, Houndoom, Houndour, and Incineroar. Chi-Yu is probably not going to be around unless you start your draft with that. Like, you could do something like Chi-Yu round 1. I think that would probably have to be taken round 1 if it's there. Then you go grab Sinistra, then Magnezone, and then I think you could get them. So I guess we could throw Chi-Yu on here. But unfortunately, you can't do that because in this draft, you have to grab a restricted, and then Sinistra might be gone by then. But I feel like there's other Sinistra replacements. So if we went Chi-Yu first, something like that, and then we ended up getting Sinistra a little bit later, I feel like that would cover it really well. It is weak to ground as well, so you might want to grab like a flying type on the team or whatever it might be just to kind of round it out. But yeah, we might actually keep going with this because we don't have a physical attacker with our core. So let's negate what we did. So what if we don't find something that resists? Oops. There we go. So it's a fire type, but let's just go with something that isn't weak to it. Let's just do that so we don't double up on a weakness. Oh, that one doesn't have any. Cool. Okay, so we have quite a few still. Cool. So let's go find some more parameters that we can do. So we want a physical attacker. So let's sort by physical attack. Cool. We got lots of them. What do we got here? So we don't, something that's in a core, I'd probably want something that is reasonably quick because the other ones are a little slow. So maybe we do sort by condition. So is greater than or equal to, let's go 100. Cool. A fire type that has a high spin. Then let's go with an attack stat that is no lower than, I don't know, let's go 115. That leaves us with 3. And it actually got rid of the one that oh, no, it's there. So Entei. Entei is an interesting pick. So let's see if Entei works. So let's take Chi-Yu off of there. Okay, so we share the ground weakness. We hit the grass types that we want to hit. We don't resist the Garst and Dosk. Oh yeah, Dark and Ghost. But Entei offers some nice pieces, especially with a restricted probably being in the universe of a dragon type. This team having 2 fairy resists, I think, is a very nice way to start. And as we mentioned earlier, because Sinistra's a tier 1 and so is Entei, you would have to pick a restricted in between this and this, which is fine, you know, because I think Sinistra is replaceable. I think Entei is replaceable. But I do think this is a good way to start. So Entei just offers your support. You've got Snarl, you got Will-O-Wisp, you have your E-Speed stuff, so maybe you can go get like a upper hand. I remember there was a strat with Trico that gets upper hand. You Terra Normal Entei, Trico goes first. And then with the Inner Focus, you don't have to worry about the flinch, and then you just start going off the +2 Terra Normal E-Speeds. Very strong mode with a tier 1 and a tier 5, and you have your Sinistra Magnezone as well. You have your redirection, so I don't know if Entei can set up. Yo, this thing has eruption too. That's crazy. Let's go. Can Entei set up? We have... This thing can't set up? No way. That sucks. Don't pick it. No, I'm kidding. This thing's still really good. You have agility, I guess. Calm Mind, I think, is another way of setting up, which is good. But, again, this is just... You just saw how quickly that happened. This is probably not the best way to go. I'm sure there's other options than Sinistra that we can run with. There's probably other options than Entei we can run with. But again, the concepts still apply. Hitting different ways, covering for each other, not having to rely on your Terra. Because Entei is also weak to ground, Magnezone isn't super protected. If you can make it so Magnezone's your only ground weakness, it's just tough to do, or your other ground weaknesses are lower in your tiers, so if they really want to, you know, cover that, then they're covering for your weaker mons rather than your stronger mons. So that would be up to you. But again, with these concepts, you see, I think this could work. I do think this would be really, really nice. And Entei's decently bulky. Kind of. This HP stat's really nice. Another thing that the hospitality can recover as well. So, and you guys can obviously tell that I was just kind of winging that as we went, but it's called on the fly right there. Yeah, so I don't know. I hope this helped. I really like building teams. I probably had about 100 different teams so far. I think the hardest part is deciding on how you want to start. But once you decide that, you pick your favorite mon to start with, and then you start building supporting pieces around it that probably support the way you want to play. That's the other thing. Like, do you really want to go with Awseome, Glamora, and like Registeel or something like that? Like, that's committing to play a certain way. Wink, wink. Stall. If you want to play like that all season, you're committing to it. And again, you want to pick a team that you'll have fun with, because if you're 0-4, 0-3, 0-4, it's a long season. It's 2 months, right? Well, almost 2 months, I think. What is it, 8 weeks? So it's, I don't know. It's 8 weeks. It's a long season. So if you're not winning, you don't want to go to the PC and start building. You don't want to go to your phone and start building. You don't want to arrange your matches. You just don't care. So in the end, have something that will motivate you if you are losing. Have something that will be fun to prep with. Give yourself as many tools as possible. Spread out these stats. I see them down here. Everybody's super gung-ho about this type chart. It is more important to me that you can hit different ways and defend different ways. Different speed spectrum. Something that is a defensive wall. Something that is a special wall. Something that hits on the special side. Something that hits on the physical side. You want to hit a bunch of different ways. Priority, rage powder, like so redirection, disruption. You want to throw as many things as you can on a team, because you don't know what tool you're going to need until you're prepping against the team. And we won't know who has the teams until after the draft, and you won't know who you're going to play until the schedule is released. So draft a team that can do everything. Call it balance, call it whatever you want. I just think it's being smart. You got 11 slots. Use them to your advantage. You know, put as many tools as possible on there. And again, I suck at ending videos, so bye.